Resiliency, a wellness consultancy on a mission to reduce suffering in the workplace. Through her work, she helps people reclaim power and balance over their nervous system so that they can live less stressful and more peaceful lives. Having an intimate relationship to trauma, Sarah deeply understands the connection between the body's trauma response and adverse life effects. Sarah places an emphasis on building safety with her clients while helping them gain self-agency and self-awareness. Sarah is one of Culture Amp's top 25 emerging culture creators in wellness of 2024 and is also the co-lead for the Global Trauma Chapter. Without further ado, let's give Sarah a warm MABC welcome, and off she goes.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Heather. I am ecstatic to be here and share this knowledge with you. So before we dive into our topic today, I would love to first acknowledge that any conversation about stress can be very taxing to our bodies and our nervous system. So please engage in the ways that work best for you. So that means if you need to switch your audio or your camera on and off, if you need to get up and stretch, maybe you need a pair of socks or a blanket or a sweatshirt. Maybe you need to get a glass of water, tea, or coffee. Perhaps you're a doodler, or maybe you even need to leave this webinar. Please feel free to do so. Taking care of yourself comes first. Also, as we mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. So if you want to share something that is sensitive and you don't want it recorded, we'll be sure to pause the recording and then we'll record once you are done sharing. So let's take a moment to check in with ourselves. We've been chatting away, we did some businessy things, and let's center ourselves and give ourselves some space to arrive here. We're physically here, but our minds might be elsewhere. So we're going to do a brief check-in. You can do this either camera on or camera off. And so I'll give you a moment to either turn your camera on or turn your camera off or remain on. Great. So whether you're standing or sitting, let's make sure the head and the shoulders and the hips are aligned. We have our feet flat on the floor. And you can either close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or you can simply just lower your gaze, not focusing on anything in particular. And we're going to take a few deep breaths in through the nose, filling the belly, exhaling out the mouth, making sure the exhale is just a little longer than that inhale. So I'll cue you now, breathing in through the nose and exhale. Good. Inhale and exhale. Good. Last breath here in through the nose. And exhale. We are slowing down, arriving, and settling in, giving our brains extra oxygen so we're ready to participate and learn. So when you're ready, you can come back on screen. Let's see here, we have something in the chat. No worries, Matthew. Okay, so Heather already introduced myself, but I'll just briefly scan over this. I'm Sarah Ginke. I'm a nervous system and resilience coach. I'm certified in something called TRE, stands for tension and trauma releasing exercises. I'm the founder of Reset, Resiliency, a wellness consultancy on a mission to reduce suffering in the workplace. I am the co-lead for the Madison Culture First chapter and also the co-lead for the Global Trauma chapter. As Heather mentioned, this year I won an award as one of the top 25 emerging culture creators in wellness through Culture Amp. It's a big tech HR conglomerate out there, and it's a real honor. So let's start with the common thread that brings us all together, work. We spend roughly 1/3 of our lives at work. And for entrepreneurs, it tends to be even more. On top of working a lot, only 57% of small business owners take vacations. Yikes. So let's see if you are aware of how much you're working. Stuart, launch that poll, please. So, how much are we working? Are you working 60 plus hours a week? Are you working 50 to 59, 40 to 49, 30 to 39? Or are you that lucky entrepreneur, small business owner who is working less than 30 hours per week? Fascinating. All right. Looks like almost everyone has answered this poll. So Stuart, let's go ahead and close the poll and show those results. Awesome. So let's see if these results align with the findings here. So according to an article on Patriot Software, 19% of entrepreneurs work 60 plus hours per week. Looks like we're on par with that at 20%. 30% work 50 to 59 hours per week. Nobody's in that category. 33% work 40 to 49 hours. So a little bit of a heavier percentage in this group. 14% work 30 to 39, which we're a little low there. And then 5% work 30 hours or less per week. I'm gonna be honest, I really want to get in that 5% at some point in my life. But this is fabulous. 30% of people are working 30 hours or less per week. That's absolutely incredible. So, what are we doing when we're working? Well, we're doing a lot. There's all the things we're holding down, all those areas, and we're learning and we're stretching and growing in areas that we're not as strong in. And we're balancing all the things from sales, strategic planning and goals, finance, marketing, operations, products and service development, just to name a few. And balancing all of these things is extremely stressful. And I know for myself that bookkeeping or expenses is something that just really stresses me out. So, if you will, go ahead and share in the chat what are some of the top 3 things that stress you out when it comes to your business? Cash flow. Yeah, sales, cash flow, sales and marketing. Thank you for those who have shared. Taxes. Oh my gosh, such a good one. The behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot behind that stuff. Client acquisition, paperwork. Ugh, yes, all of these are icky. So, oh, we've got a few more. Let's see. Admin, greatest way to kill me. Writing meaningful content. Yeah, marketing. Yeah, looks like we're pretty aligned here. We're scattered but aligned. Oh, shouldering the emotional desire for success for clients. Thank you for sharing, everyone. So while we're balancing all the things in our business, we're also balancing all the things in our lives. We are not just one-dimensional beings that work all the time. Well, some of us do, but we wear many different hats and we play many different roles that also contribute to our stress levels. And we know that we cannot separate that personal from professional. What's happening at work is showing up in home, and what's happening in home is showing up in our work, especially when guilty is charged. We work from home. A lot of us, we cannot separate that. Now you may be thinking, Sarah, stress is not all bad. And that's correct. We do have eustress, which is that good stress. However, when we're pushed outside our limits, eustress becomes that distress. And we don't enjoy what we're doing. There's no fun to be had, which is ironic because the whole point of becoming an entrepreneur and starting your own small business is to do the things that we love, right? So when we're in distress, we become anxious and exhausted, and many of us may start to even have some health issues or even become burnt out. What is burnout? Well, it's a special type of work-related stress. It's a state of physical and emotional exhaustion that also involves a sense of reduced accomplishment and loss of personal identity. When we're stressed or overstressed, we can't do our best, and as a result, our business suffers. So, where does all of this stress go that we accumulate throughout our days and years of working? Well, let's physically map this out. So, where do you feel stress in your body? To participate here, go ahead and click on annotate, and the little bar will pop up on your left-hand side, and you can either click to write something or text something. You can click to draw with a color or leave perhaps a check mark like so.
It's a little green like circle that looks like a pen. For me, it's in the bottom left.
Okay. Oh, great. Ooh, we got some head action, shoulder action, chest, neck action. We got some stomach. We got some thighs, knees. Hips. Laura, I see you. Hips. Lower back. Ooh, lots of tension up here. Yeah, me too. I always feel stress like in my chest, and recently it's kind of developed in my upper back and really in my erector spinae muscles, which they're the ones that run all the way from the back of our skull all the way to our sacrum, really just our tailbone. Those muscles hold us up directly. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. Okay, I'll give it a moment or two before we move on here. So we've got lots of head, shoulders, some mid-chest, hips, knee, some stomach here. Yes.
We
And
could
that
sing the song head, shoulders, knees, and
knees and
toes,
toes,
knees and
knees
toes.
and toes. Amazing. Yes, so this is where stress can show up absolutely in our body. So, does anyone actually, we're gonna move on. So what's happening inside of us when we get stressed? Does anyone briefly just want to share like their experience or come off mute and talk about what's happening in their body? Like, what does stress feel like when it's in your shoulders or your head or your gut?
I would label irritated. I'm just all over irritated, snippy. That's what happens to me.
Mm-hmm. It's a tightness, yes. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, I would say tense, constricted, like loss of oxygen or lack of oxygen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm
Thanks,
more
Laura.
prone to triggers. For example, when I'm stressed, I'm more likely to blow up if somebody does something that doesn't agree with where I'm going or what I need at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So on edge.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing, Stuart. Yeah, Roberto, snap at the lightest trigger. Yeah, ain't that the truth?
I think for me, Sarah, it's more about the brain not shutting off in the evening when you want your brain to shut off, right? You're just always thinking, always planning, always or forwarding. You're not in the present moment. And so for me, it's that getting grounded and how to set practices before you're turning off, like say an hour reading a physical book and not being online or these things like that. But I naturally have an overactive, wonderfully creative, engaged brain, so I don't need any help on that. But for me, that's the biggest one, I think, is the anxiety, the overthinking, and the worrying.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing, Holly. I'll give it a moment for anyone else who wants to potentially share before we move on. Okay. Well, I just want to validate all of your experiences. What you're feeling is normal, even though it's a little uncomfortable. So let's talk a little bit about the science behind what's happening internally when we get stressed. So, stress involves our nervous system, and our nervous system is a very complex web of nerves. Think about it as like roots of a tree. And so what we'll be focusing on today is the autonomic portion of the nervous system. And within the autonomic nervous system, there are three main parts. We have ventral vagal, also called social engagement or parasympathetic. We have that fight or flight response or sympathetic energy. And then we have the freeze, the fawn, the flop, and also the parasympathetic. It's the other side. So let's dive in. So let's begin with ventral vagal, also known, as I said, social engagement. This is what you would call our thriving state. It's where we feel calm, we feel confident, we feel creative, we are engaged, we are innovative, and also kind of known as being in the flow. Everything feels really good, organic, and authentic. This is the state that we want to be in order to have not just a thriving life, but also a thriving business. Because business is all about relationships and how we make people feel, we want to be in this state so that we can connect with others. Now, I know some of you mentioned sales being kind of a stress point in your business. Imagine doing a sales call from this state. You're confident, you're calm, people are going to want to buy from you because after all, people buy you. Yes, they buy your services or whatever you're offering, but they're buying because of the relationship with you. And they're sensing your confidence, so they feel confident in you. Plus, people, and we know this, just want to be seen. They want to be heard, they want to be valued. And when you are coming from this state, you are making people feel that way, whether that's on a conscious or subconscious level. I'd argue it's both. So, in other words, the success of our business is determined by the quality of our relationships to and with others. So, go ahead and share in the chat. When do you feel like you're in this state, whether it's a work-related thing or non-work related thing?
Can you repeat exactly the question again?
Yeah, for sure. When do you feel like you're in this calm, creative state? What things are you doing? Who are you with? Um, when do you notice that you're in this regulated state? Amazing. Heather, when I get to create curriculum collaboratively rather than little business tasks. Yes, I love to collaborate. I'm all about that. And that feeds directly into what we're talking about. When I am deeply focused on a task in the flow, non-work related, using my creative brain, yes, well rested, meetings with new people, and wondering what they do and love. I can tell I'm feeling in the zone when I'm around emotionally healthy, mutually inspirational, and awesome people. Yes, Laura, our nervous systems talk to one another. We're not going to get into that today. That'd probably be like a 2.0. But yes, you can sense when people are in this state and you want to be around them because it feels good, right? Awesome, Holly. Thanks. Less about when and more about setting healthy boundaries, being sure that I have protected quiet solitude moments before high activity engagements. Yes. Amazing. Stuart, I don't know what you just shared. Is that a person?
Yes, I can't pronounce it, but it is 8 traits of flow.
Ooh,
And he is a psychologist from, I believe, Hungary, and
amazing.
deals with positive psychology. And one of the co-founders of positive psychology. It's all about flow. When you're in
Amazing.
this state.
Oh,
So
awesome.
if you Google his name or you go into YouTube videos, you can see what flow is all about. It's you get
Amazing.
lost in what you're doing.
Love that. I will definitely check that out after this. Thanks for sharing that. And Heather, thanks for sharing his pronunciation. Chick sent me hi. Did I say that wrong? Right? I don't know. Oh, Robert, I remember the good and forget the bad, or at least don't let it jump to the center stage, the bad. Awesome. So now let's talk about that next state. So we're talking about that fight or flight, which I'm sure many of you have heard of before. This is also known as sympathetic energy or hyper energy. This is where we feel stress, overwhelm, anxiety, nervousness, irritation, or even rage. And, I've got some sympathetic energy going on right now because it's a little nerve-wracking talking to people, but I've done my practices to center and ground myself so I can show up and be authentic. So let's think about this state like a car. It's like the gas pedal in a car. If we keep our foot on the gas forever, eventually we're going to run out of fuel, which causes damage to the car, and we will break down. Or the car will break down, I should say. We, though, are the cars. If we're constantly on the go, 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 and we don't take time to rest, refuel, or do maintenance, we too will break down, hence burnout, and our businesses will suffer. So again, if anyone cares to share, put in the chat when you feel like you've kind of dipped into that sympathetic energy. What kinds of activities are you doing? What situations are you in? Deadlines, got to get it done now. Yes. Meeting everyone else's needs and continue to put mine or the business on the back burner. Imposter syndrome. Too much to do in too little time. Shitting on myself. Dealing with other people's urgency. Yeah. So again, our nervous systems are talking to one another. You can feel when someone is activated or heightened or anxious. It kind of starts to make you feel anxious. Right. Spot on. When it feels like life things get in the way of what I wanted or needed to get done. Yes. Eisenhower matrix quadrant 2 and 3. Okay, sharing some knowledge I'm not familiar with, but hey, I would love to learn about it. Amazing. So let's talk now about that last piece on the graph. This is called dorsal vagal. This is the backside of the parasympathetic nervous system. This is why we get tight shoulders and why I have a tight upper back, because that's being activated. So this is the state, and it's home to the stress responses of freeze, fawn, and flop. Now, you may have heard of freeze, but for those of you who are not familiar, freeze means that you are immobile or paralyzed by whatever threat your body is detecting. Think of this, like you're on a sales call and someone asks you a question that you don't have the answer to. You might freeze up a little bit or have that deer in the headlights look. That is a slight freeze response. Fawn means to appease the threat or to submit. And flop is similar to freezing, except for your muscles become loose and your body kind of goes floppy like a pancake. Now, these states are all on a scale with freeze on one side and flop on the other. Our bodies will react to different situations or scenarios or stimuli, aka threat, in different ways. So how you respond to one thing will vary to how you respond to the next. That's why we have some strengths and weaknesses when it comes to different tasks or areas that we are strong or weaker in our businesses. So it's in this dorsal vagal state that you feel disconnected, passive, withdrawn, or even slightly depressed. Think about coming home after a long day of work or shutting your computer after a stressful day and just plopping straight onto the couch. Chances are that you have dipped a little bit into this state, which is okay. It's important to note that none of these states are inherently bad. Our nervous systems have evolved over millions of years as a way to keep us alive and safe. The difference is that our bodies are having the same reaction we do to can we talk text as we do to getting chased by a lion. That's why working with our nervous systems and befriending our nervous systems is so important. We want to be able to access logic and critical thinking when it's necessary and not letting our bodies take over. It's also important to note that you may be in one state the whole day, or you may be in all three states throughout the day, or you might be in all three states multiple times throughout the day. That is also okay. The challenge, though, is when we get stuck in a sympathetic or dorsal vagal state, either from prolonged stress or trauma, that we start to experience adverse effects on our health, whether that be mentally, physically, or emotionally, i.e., we are dealing with addiction or heart disease, liver disease. Notice disease is spelled dis-ease. Diabetes, asthma, or even experiencing earlier death. So nervous system regulation is really about being able to fluidly move through these states without getting hung up on or in one. Self-regulation is about A, being connected to our nervous system, B, noticing when we're triggered or activated, again, in that sympathetic or dorsal vagal state, and then stepping in to take care of ourselves when we are dysregulated, such as going for a walk or talking with a loved one, or perhaps meditating. Self-regulation tools like what I just mentioned help you regulate and ground back into safety, into that social engagement. So to kind of put it into perspective, let's go back to the car analogy. Learning to regulate your nervous system is like learning to drive stick. At first, it might be kind of jerky and feel kind of weird, but eventually it will feel really good and be smooth sailing or driving. So let's walk through a very tangible, real example. Let's say Lily wakes up one morning. She does her morning routine. She's feeling really good about the day and everything is green. Then she realizes that she has a big presentation that she forgot to prepare for. So she's rushing to put something together, but because she's rushing, her work is not her best. And this whole time she's feeling that tense, tight, icky, anxious feeling as that clock ticks away. Lily shows up to the presentation, but she's sweating and she is very nervous. And when it comes to her time to talk, she freezes. So let's walk through what just happened. Lily started her day out in ventral vagal and some engagement, and then she dipped into some sympathetic energy when she kind of noticed the threat of having an unprepared presentation. And then she finally dips into some dorsal vagal or some freeze when it finally comes to her time to talk because she's just so overwhelmed, she can't. She freezes. Now, had Lily taken a moment to self-regulate or ground herself back into safety, social engagement, once she found out about the presentation, instead of just rushing through to finish it, if she would have taken a moment to pause and notice that she was activated, and then insert a self-regulation tool, she would have been able to ground herself and eventually think more clearly do better work, and present from a place of authenticity and confidence. Sound familiar? So let's head into some small breakout rooms for you to discuss what you do to process stress. We'll come back together as a large group and see if anyone wants to share anything that they're using to help manage their stress or self-regulate. Stuart, mind helping us get to these breakout rooms?
Breakout rooms are open now.
Amazing. Thank you.
And I think I assigned you to one as well, Sarah. Sorry.
It's okay. I think I'm going to stay here though.
Okay. There's 3 per room based on participant levels. Just join.
Well, Stuart, you and I can talk too.
We can.
Yeah, you've got a little group right here.
I'm seeing that John's with us, so this might be also in a room that we didn't even join.
Yeah.
And John's the monster voice, so we probably won't be hearing from him.
No worries.
Oh, he just jumped out.
Oh,
And let's just see if someone's not there. Yes, you're assigned to room 1. And that's just Holly and Michael. That's fine. They'll get along fine. The other rooms seem to be set. There's also a room with just 2. That would be room 3, and that's Heather and Amy, and they'll chat. So what do you do for your stress?
yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about that. My main tool that I use is TRE, and I'll get into that. But I love to meditate, love to go on walks, talk with loved ones, journal. I used to exercise more than I do now, but I'm trying to get back on the wheel with that. So those I'd say are like what I use to manage my stress.
Yeah, awesome.
What about you?
I walk with my dog, and that's a daily habit or a need because he's an active dog, so he needs lots of walk.
Mhm.
And I like getting out in nature. I also read, but meditate is there as well. And just yeah, I meditation, reading, getting into nature, hiking, kayaking, biking, all of the outdoor activities. So anything that gets me away from the norm.
Yeah. Oops.
I'm just thinking
I
in the
meant
background
to
the
say
fire there. So
biking
what I
too.
can do is also broadcast a message to folks.
Yeah, that's fine.
whether-
You can say, talk about some of the things that they do to manage stress.
And when it comes to closing the rooms, I just broadcast the message
Mhm.
out to the rooms. When it comes to closing the rooms, you let me know, and I'll send a message out that we got a minute or 2 left. 5 minutes is kind of short because I found that when people get into these rooms, they really dive deep,
Yeah.
and they inevitably, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even 15, they say that was too short.
That's fine.
Yeah.
How long did you put them in there for?
I did not set a time,
Okay,
so just
that's
until we
fine.
close the rooms. So you said 5 minutes, and I didn't set a time on that.
That's fine. I mean, we can give them more time too, no worries.
So whatever you're comfortable with in terms of what you have left. So
Not a ton. I mean, some, but I can get through it. We got through like some of the big concepts, so.
well, and I think if you leave a bit of time open for Q&A and folks are willing to do that's what makes it beneficial, particularly if
Yep,
you've triggered a lot of interest in people that they'll be coming back with questions for you. And you can
definitely.
encourage,
Yep.
people to put it into the chat, and then you can follow up with asking them to expand on that.
Yeah, for sure. How do you feel like it's going? Do you feel like it's just
I
resonating?
it's great. I'm seeing a little bit of you reading your notes, but that's fine.
Are you reading? You see my notes?
No. I'm not seeing your notes. I'm seeing the fact that you're reading the notes just from a
Oh,
presenter stamp. I present too, so I know when you're taking what you've done and you scripted it well for yourself, which is great. But I don't think that everyone sees that. It's just that, hey, I'm in your shoes very often.
yeah,
So,
no, they definitely probably see it, but that's okay.
yeah, no, and even so, you're really good at kind of masking that, if you will. It sounds authentic and you're coming across, but sometimes it doesn't flow as if you're naturally just right here, fully present without having to think about what is your next point. And then that
Yeah.
is, regardless of how practiced you are, having the notes, I think, is a great thing because that keeps you on task, on script, and covers the main points that you want to cover, especially when you're talking about more theoretical stuff, is some of the things that you've covered.
Right. Yeah. I'll try and be more authentic.
Yeah, no, it's not a criticism. It's simply an observation and one from one presenter to another.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, this is like a new presentation that I put together. I've done other stuff, but yeah, this was a bit newer for me. So I was like, I want to make sure that I have what I need in case I get lost in thought.
sure. I like it. I mean, something triggered the unconscious competent matrix. Are you familiar with that? It's where you have unconscious incompetence, conscious competence, or conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious. I can share. I'll show you this. Might be able to share over the top of you for a sec. No, I'm not going to do that because then we're going to maybe mess yours up. But there are 4 stages. It's the stages of learning, and something that you had talked about was how you adjust from one stage to the other, and it comes to awareness. So it's part of learning. You start when you're not really aware of what you don't know. That's unconscious incompetence. I think you use the driving a car analogy. So let's say if you're driving a stick shift, right? And it's a manual transmission. You've never done it before. You don't know if you can do it or not. You jump in the car, you're not competent, you don't know how, you can't do it. And then once you get a little bit of instruction, you are now conscious that you're incompetent. You start to move the gears, you grind the gears, the car jerks around a lot, but you're moving forward. You figured out how to do it, and you know that you don't know how to do it. The first one is you don't know that you don't know to do it. The second one is that you know that you don't know. And then finally, you get really more practiced with it, and you're moving more smoothly, but you have to think about every move that you do. This is conscious competence. You're conscious of where you are with what you need to do with each stage of the shifting. And then finally, you get to the unconscious competence stage. And this is where you just drive from point A to point B and you don't know how you got there. It just happens, you flow, the transmission.
Yep.
So those are the 4 stages of learning, from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. And when you use the car example, that kind of replaced it with me. So.
I wonder where people are at today with this.
Don't know. You can ask.
I don't know enough about it to ask.
That's all right. So, there's different theories, and I'm surprised that you haven't heard of flow, because some of what you talk about in that, I have to go back to the
I've heard of
terminology.
flow. I didn't know of that exact person.
Oh, he's the originator of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's got a really cool quote, and a really nice couple of YouTube videos too, if you Google that. But the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something that is difficult or worthwhile. So when you talk about eustress, that's it, right? It is being in that eustress state, but you're moving towards something that you're really vested in wanting to see a positive outcome, and you're competent in doing it, and then it just flows. Yeah. So let me know if I should send a message and bring people back.
Yeah, we can start doing that.
Okay. Closing rooms in a minute. Any broadcast going out.
Dang, now I'm self-conscious about my reading.
Are you a member of MABC yet?
No, not yet.
Well, so we need to make that happen.
Yes, we do.
You can benefit by these folks. I'm going to close rooms. Can't recall if Zoom is going to put a minute on there or just yank people out.
Sometimes it does. It depends on the timer thing.
Okay, I was doing, okay, yes, 60 seconds is what they say. So I'm gonna close them and they've got their 60 seconds. And they'll start coming back shortly. Hey, thanks for all that you do, Sarah. Appreciate it. You are really, you know your stuff well, and it's coming across, and you have that consultant standard expertise that
Thanks.
is big in a group of consultants. It's hard to be evaluated by your peers, but you're doing an awesome job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we got about 30 seconds to go.
Perfect.
People might decide to come back early if they're not engaged,
It's fine.
but for the most part, good breakdowns here. And 10 seconds before they're rudely yanked back into the main. They'll be coming back in the middle of a sentence, I'm sure, if they didn't see that.
Most definitely. They'd be like, dang. Welcome back. How are those breakout rooms? Great. I think you know what I'm going to ask you. Does anyone feel like coming off and sharing a little bit about what you talked about or what you do to manage your stress?
Talked about walking away for a few minutes just to process the information and perhaps do something completely different to engage our minds, or something tactile like knitting or petting the dog. There's situations like Mike when he's on stage when he can't just walk away. And so he has to sometimes pivot and be ready if someone else forgets their line or a prop isn't there, but really has to be able to think on his feet, and that can be stressful too. But that's basically what we talked about.
Thanks for sharing. I understand, Mike, as a fellow former thespian myself. Yes, you gotta be on.
Go ahead, Amy. You go.
We talked a little bit about, Heather and I, about sort of that fine line between the positive stress, like the energy that you get and whatever, and in the flip of a switch or in a moment or some slight circumstance that can change that very same thing that you're excited about and sort of in the flow on can totally like have you stumble or be deflated or whatever, in personal or professional. And it's sort of trying to anticipate or regulate those fine lines, so that you've got some gas in your tank, but also just some tools that are available to help you climb out.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Amy.
And I'll piggyback. We also talked about similar to what Anne was saying and Mike, that you need time to deregulate, right? Or however, whatever the word is, to get back into that other place. So Amy was sharing like the taxing situation, and if you didn't have enough room in between there to refuel, or it becomes what's that word where it's like building on top of each other, and then you really are in a like overwhelming situation in that flop or freeze or I give up or burnout because you didn't get the opportunity to recharge in between.
It's really easy to tip over into the side of overwhelm, right?
Holly, she connected it to introverts, right? Needing their space to like be able to go back and re-engage.
Thanks for sharing. Anyone else care to share? Going once, going twice.
All right. We talked, Sarah,
All
you
right.
and I, about the healing power of nature. Just getting out. and getting away, going for those walks and meditation, the power of that as well.
Mhm.
So, and I just realized that I didn't pause the recording while we talked. So when you go back and review the recording, you get to see our exclusive breakout, I believe. So maybe we can delete that or something if you're good at video editing.
Yes, that'd be great. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
I can add
Michael, I
just
saw
one
you.
other,
Oh,
I
go
can
ahead.
add just one other thing very softly, Sarah. I think respect, we don't give ourselves enough grace, right? It's like when you're feeling it or you're like, I wished I would have reacted or did this in advance. But I want to say in the conversation with I and Michael, it's really about that awareness. And we are, as people that are wanting to make a difference in the world and caring so much as a servant leader, leading from a place of service, taking care of others, it's remembering to put ourselves in that equation right alongside the precious people that we serve. And nature, as Stuart said, is so important. And also, as Heather talked about, it's our communication styles, our learning styles. It's not that we're less than, it's just a beautiful diversity aspect. And how do you integrate all of that wonderfulness that we are from a place of grace and respecting that grief is relevant as well as joy.
Mm. So yummy. Well said, Holly. Thank you so much. All right. I know we're closing out on time here, so let's keep her moving. So we talked about a lot of things in the share. Thank you for everyone who did speak up. There are a bunch of different things that we can do to manage and process our stress. Some of those tools out there are meditation, dance, breath work, singing, TRE, physical exercise, yoga, EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping, if you're familiar with that. And last but not least, Tai Chi. So this is not by any means an exhaustive list, just to give you a taste of what's out there and available for you. So I would love to introduce to you another concept of window of tolerance. So like what's happening when we're using these tools? Well, we are not just grounding into safety, we are also widening our window of tolerance. And this is also known as what we call our optimal zone. Kind of imagine that perfect switch with the clutch from fourth to second. Resilience is very much like a muscle. If we don't actively work on building it, we lose it or it shrinks. And you can also think of it as like a rubber band. So when we stretch ourselves through self-regulation tools, our resilience muscles are getting stronger so that we can withstand even more adversity the next time that we face something without getting as dysregulated into that hyper or that hypo. Self-regulation tools, as I mentioned before, help ground us into that safety, help us calm down or come down and be in our window of tolerance, which is, very much like a river, as this document shows. So when the river is really narrow, things are moving really fast and it's scary and it's dangerous. But as that window widens, the water may still be running through, but it has more space. And so it's not as scary. When we're in that wider window of tolerance, we're feeling more balanced and calm. We feel relaxed and in control. We are able to function more effectively, and we're able to take on any challenge that is thrown at us, which, as an entrepreneur, this is a really helpful skill. And as a human who lives in a VUCA world that's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, that is such an important skill to be able to have. So today I want to talk to you about one tool in particular that I found to be really helpful in helping us not just drop into social engagement, but also widening our window of tolerance. And that is TRE. So TRE stands for tension and trauma releasing exercises. It's very similar to yoga, and it consists of 7 preparatory exercises, which you can see that I'm doing here in the video, that lightly stretch and fatigue muscles so we can tap into something called neurogenic shaking or tremoring. And this is the modality that I access and teach people how to access. So shaking is actually innate in all mammals, and is seen in the wild, it's seen in dogs, seen in children. Maybe they have a fall and they're scared and they're a little shaky. That's what's going on internally. Also, for any of those who may have children or have given birth, you might have shakes after giving birth, and that is a total normal way of discharging the stress from the body. The difference between like dogs and humans is that we haven't been conditioned to do this. We actually suppress it. And so this is something that we can reconnect back to. And it's really interesting because this is all about the mind-body connection. You know, TRE is based on the fundamental idea that stress, tension, trauma, it's both psychological and also physical, and we cannot separate the two. So now I'm going to show you just a brief video on how this works and what it looks like in nature. And let me know if you cannot hear this.
Right there. Looks like a fatty. We'll go for that one, Dennis. Here, oh yeah. Absolutely perfect. See, his eyes are getting a bit bigger neck and so on, yes. Holy snapper. If you watch that animal after he finishes convulsing, you'll see, because he's aware of the fact that we're all around him, and it's a very stressful experience for an animal like a polar bear. And after he settles down, and then he'll start doing a couple of deep breaths, and then he'll breathe really nicely, and it'll really... Now go, here he goes. See how he's breathing there now? You can see, so that even though it looks a little unpleasant to look at him convulsing like that, in fact, it lets off all that stress, and he then is able to relax and sleep the thing off.
Okay, so some of you might be like, what the heck did I just watch? This is a great example of an animal shaking off stress, tension, or trauma in the wild. So what happened was that polar bear, you know, started going to some of that sympathetic, that yellow zone. It was running away, so it was flighting, trying to get away from the helicopter because the helicopter is the threat. And then once the polar bear was tranquilized and it kind of just flopped over, but you noticed it was still consciously there. It was still blinking and still breathing. And so eventually, after that threat kind of passed, and though the humans were still there, it was able to shake off that stress in a very natural and organic way. And this is why most animals don't experience trauma or stress, but humans do. And so when we get that energy stuck and stored in our body, it starts manifesting as illnesses and diseases and things of the like. So that was a great example. Also, I just wanted to say that this is a very old video. There are a bunch of other videos on people doing TRE, much more research out there, et cetera, et cetera. So take what he said there with a grain of salt. So let's just briefly talk about what TRE helps with. It's a very unique tool that touches on a lot of different areas, such as decreasing depression and anxiety, helping you come out of that hyper or hypo, again, and coming into that window of tolerance, improving your sleep, coming out of overwhelm and hypervigilance, improves our relationships because we're able to connect on a deeper level and we're not getting as triggered. It also helps decrease that pain or chronic tension or tightness in our body, and it increases our resilience and increases burnout. So we talked about a couple different concepts today. Let's review them in full. So we talked about how much we're working and what the biggest stressors are when it comes to our work, where we feel stress in our body, what's happening internally when we feel stress, those 3 different states of the nervous system, ventral vagal, sympathetic, dorsal vagal. We also touched on window of tolerance. And lastly, on some of the tools that can help manage our stress and build our resilience, which is so important as an entrepreneur. So if you're interested in trying out TRE, there's a few different places you can do that. Stuart might be dropping some links in the chat here. You can either obviously work one-on-one and do a session that way, virtual or in person. You can also join Hamea's monthly workshop event or class. I have an upcoming one actually this weekend, an intro to TRE, 3 to 4:30. I also do pop-up classes at Peaceful Wellness Studio. We've got a retreat coming up on the 27th. If you're interested in learning TRE and a few other modalities, you can check that out there as well. And then lastly, I'm going to be testing out some classes at Electric Yoga downtown. So very excited for that. And then last but not least, if you want to learn whether or not you're outside of your window of tolerance, you can fill out the form, which Stuart should drop in the link here soon, or in the chat here soon, to get the window of tolerance worksheet and also receive a code for $25 off your first session if you're interested. If your overall interest has been piqued from today's learnings and you want to learn more about TRE or anything about me or nervous system work, you can either reach out to me on LinkedIn, visit my website. It's Reset Resiliency, RISET, resiliency.com, or send me an email at sarah@resetresiliency.com. Also, you can book me for a workshop, podcast, or collaborations. Love to collaborate. So my last plug will be the global trauma chapter. So if this kind of stuff is your jam, make sure to join this chapter. We're growing. We're becoming quite large within the Culture First community, talking about how stress and trauma and all of this stuff shows up in our workplaces and what we can do about it. Or if you're interested and you're just a people lover, HR, like is your jam, culture work, things like that, you can join the Madison Culture First chapter. So let's head to some questions. And Heather, before we conclude, I'd love to get a picture of all of us for those who are interested in that.
Yes, round of applause, Sarah. Thank you so much for bringing your expertise to MABC. And this is not just business, this is life, and helping us all connect and manage life lifts our whole community, whether you put any adjective in front of the community. It's so important, and I'm just thrilled to have had your knowledge here with all of us. So thank you. I will be Stuart right now and remind us all to go to the chat and click on the 3 little dots so that you can save all of those links that Sarah just put in there, or Stuart put in for Sarah. And then I put in the other 2. One is to nominate somebody for the Walter Award and join an MABC team for 2025. So those links are in there as well. And we have 5 minutes. Look at us. We are just on fire to get the picture taken and to be able to ask Sarah any extra questions. So Sarah, do you want to take the picture or do you want us to?
Let's do it. Yes. Okay, everyone, put on your biggest smile. Say, I'm no longer stressed forever.
I'm no longer stressed.
Oh, wait, sorry. I don't know why I didn't take. Hold on. Take 2.
One more time. Now I'm stressed. So, 1, 2.
Why is it not taking? Hold on. I always do this. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, guys. Hold on here. I should be able to. Okay, I'll do it on my other keyboard. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Questions, comments, concerns? Let's talk.